More than 1.3 million active duty service members are working right now to keep America safe. But how many do we actually know? A CBS News poll out this morning says more than 90% of Americans have a favorable view of our military. Just 55% have a close friend or relative serving. We're taking a look at the gap between troops and the rest of America. And this morning we welcome Steve Inskeep, co-host of NPR's Morning Edition and Up First. He met a family with a tradition of service stretching back to the Revolutionary War. Steve, good morning.
Norah, good morning. While most people don't serve, for some, it runs in the family. There's actually a term, military brat, which people often call themselves when they grew up in military families. Many of them live apart from the rest of us, often enduring experiences like that of the Miller family.
We had 3 children serving in very dangerous positions simultaneously, 1 in Afghanistan, 2 in Iraq. That was the hardest season of being soldier's mom.
I'm thinking about what must have gone through your mind anytime the phone rang or the doorbell rang.
The phone. You do dread the calls that might be ugly.
The phone rang at Claire and Jerry Miller's house in 2011. Their daughter Caroline, Lieutenant Caroline Booth, was commanding a supply convoy in Iraq.
My second to last mission out there, we actually, one of my gun trucks got hit with an IED.
A roadside bomb destroyed the truck in front of hers.
That was probably one of the worst moments of my life, was just watching that explosion. It was a few seconds before we could run up there and see, thank the Lord, everybody was okay.
How much of this did you tell your mom when you had a chance to call home?
She told me enough to know that she said, Mom, I thought I might have lost my guys. It was the worst day of my life.
This is a lineup of all of the graduates in our family from West Point, the direct line from my 3 greats-grandfather down to my number 3 daughter, Caroline.
Caroline's sister Kate also served, as did their husbands, their brothers-in-law, their father Jerry, both grandfathers and ancestors long before them. 7 generations.
7 generations. Unbroken line.
An unbroken commitment forged at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point in New York.
And I think some people are willing to step up to that challenge and that call, and others are not.
On this campus, the sisters learned a craft that outsiders don't always understand.
The first question that I dread getting is, have you killed anyone, or have you shot anyone, or that's just the wrong question to ask.
People have asked that.
Oh yes, all the time, because they don't know what else to ask.
Most of you, as Americans, don't know them. Many of you don't know anyone who knows any one of them.
Last October, White House Chief of Staff John Kelly called out the public's isolation from the troops. General Kelly's son was killed in Afghanistan.
They are the very best this country produces, and they volunteer to protect our country when there's nothing in our country anymore that seems to suggest that selfless service to the nation is not only appropriate but required.
You can't make people understand what you do.
Jerry says Kelly's remarks were necessary.
You can only hope that they will become, maybe more aware. I get a lot of people who come up to me in Veterans Day and say, thank you for serving and so on and so forth. I get others that don't even know that it's Veterans Day.
Okay, guys.
It's hard to be aware because civilians may never meet a military family.
Let's do a puzzle.
They move from base to base, as Claire did growing up.
When Jerry and I got married, that was my 53rd address. We had lived in hotel rooms. We had lived up in a water tower at one time.
I love flowers.
She passed on the lifestyle to her daughter Kate, who has moved 17 times in 18 years.
I've spent every day of my adult life serving the military, either as a spouse or as a military officer, and many days both.
Why is it important that people should understand the service of those who go into the military?
Our top leaders of our nation are civilians. Our civilian populace needs to understand how our military serves, who those folks are, what they're willing to sacrifice, because ultimately we will fall in line and follow our civilian leadership.
We, the people, send them. They face the risks. What were the things that you did to manage that anxiety, if that's the right word?
Well, for us, you turn to your faith.
Let's pray.
You turn to it when there off doing things that you wouldn't wish upon them, but you know they signed up for the duty and they agreed.
And the gym. Bless the gym. Between prayer and the gym, you can get through anything.
That's pretty good, between prayer and the gym. It's such an important reminder, Steve, to us all that Veterans Day is so much more than the sales or schools closed and no mail delivery, that there are really people behind this.
It's recognizing people who served, and this is an extraordinary story because 7 generations at West Point, and yet, as I think Norah knows from covering the Pentagon in the past, it's kind of normal. There are lots of families that have sent generations into the military, even as many other families have no connection.
Yeah, that's my family. You know, my sister volunteered and just returned from deployment in the Army, and it's a culture, and it's an idea about service larger than yourself and to your country. And I have some empathy for what General Kelly said from the White House about kind of understanding those ethos, about doing something that's not always in your own self-interest. Think about that.
And we're at the point now where, because we're in the 17th year of war since 9/11, there are people who've sent 2 generations into war.
Meaning fathers and sons or mothers
daughters.
And daughters.
Thank you, Steve. Very nice to have you at the table.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for the
really
invitation.
Nice story.
Thank you.
Great, Steve.